From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined with our guest super producer, Max the Freight Train Williams. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know as you are hearing this. Fellow conspiracy realist, it is August 5th. This means that we have survived through July. We're hurtling through summer. It is, for reasons that may or may not be disclosed, one of our mutual, I won't even say favorite, one of our mutual milestones of the year is the month of August.
Talking about the birthday vibes, the consecutive birthday. Yeah,
Bunch of birthday boys.
It's the only real New Year's a person gets. Birthdays are very important to us. We also have so many strange stories to talk about. First off, we were totally right, by the way. Hate to be those people, but we were totally right about subscription services moving into more and more industries. Logitech is floating the idea of what they call a forever mouse.
I was about to say, how does one subscribe to a mouse? I don't care for this. I want to own my mouse. Thank you very much.
It's very HP, by which I mean Hewlett-Packard and maybe H.P. Lovecraft.
Harry Potter?
Or maybe Harry Potter. The idea is that it would be a mouse dependent upon regular proprietary software updates. So the mouse stops, just like an HP printer. Even if the mouse works, it will stop working for you if you don't pay your fee.
Hot take, that's dumb.
What?
A mouse is a single-use function. Like, what else do I need out of a mouse that I can't get through an iPad or through some other thing? That I don't. Maybe they can sell me on it, but I am fully against it.
It'll be so much more affordable, guys.
Stop shilling for it.
You'll go
for
in
the mouse, big
to your
mouse.
local Best Buy. You'll pick up a mouse. They'll give you $20 for taking the mouse. All you got to do is pay $10 every month for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, depending upon how you manage your subscriptions, a few months after you die as well. Before your estate clears it up. We also do have good news, right? Earlier we were talking about how we're trying to put in some good news in our strange news. So we do have some good news. We do have some astonishing news. We have some conspiratorial takes on the Olympics. Before we do any of that, we have to, of course, give our requisite shout out to Interpol, both the band and the International Law Enforcement Organization. Did you guys hear about how thoroughly they just busted an international drug conspiracy?
Yeah.
You know, Interpol never doesn't get enough wins, at least in the public sphere. You know, you don't hear much about the good works of the fine folks at Interpol. So I was happy to see them getting a W here.
There you go. It's good to see people win.
There was another thing I wanted to talk with you guys about. I can't find the story right now. Somebody just got arrested and busted who's like this international drug overlord guy as far as shipping drugs and using, speedboats to traffic them. He had a crazy name or crazy special.
Like
I'm
his street name, his moniker.
I'm going to find it.
Yeah. While you're looking for that, Matt, let's talk just briefly about the Interpol conspiracy we're alluding to. Interpol has arrested 206 individuals across Europe, North America, and the African continent. These people also came along with some accessories. Interpol got their hands on $1.6 billion worth of illegal drugs and chemicals used to make those drugs. This is an historic bust. Now, obviously people have complicated feelings about law enforcement. And Noel, to your earlier point, I would say we don't hear a lot about the times Interpol drops the ball, which does happen, just to be clear.
I'm certain, and I have to say, I mean, it comes up in like spy films, from time to time, but I don't fully understand the jurisdiction of Interpol.
Yeah. Neither does Interpol.
Okay, cool. They're always stepping out of their lane.
Yeah,
Interpol. A quick, tiny, just headline note: Hamas political leader Ismaili Haniyeh was killed in Iran, which is, I believe,
in Tehran. Actually,
yeah, exactly. Would deal quite a blow to that organization, one could argue.
There are many, many things happening that are just mentions in Western news. That's why we do this show. You might not have heard that along with this Interpol arrest, like they busted a genuine conspiracy. They also got 65 stolen cars. They got 30,000 military grade detonators. And then they got the classic narco sub, the homemade semi-submersible submarine. It's an amazing story. It's one you can learn more about should you wish to. Matt, do we have the name yet?
Oh, we do. The title of this person, whose real name is Milos Radonjic, who's 34. He was arrested in Italy and extradited to New York City. He is a citizen of Montenegro, and he goes by Pirate of the Unknown.
That's the name. Yes.
That's a pretty good message board handle.
It is, depending on how you lead it, right? How you lead speak that one. But we have so much to get to. So maybe let's take a quick break and then we'll dive right in. And we have returned. Here's a mixtape approach to the first part of our segment this evening. We've heard from you, fellow conspiracy realists, and one thing we really appreciate is when we can hit a lot of stories, we get a lot of responses from you, and you are the most important part of this show. We have to say it. We are adults here. I thought of our earlier conversations regarding privacy and freedom on the internet when I learned that this summer, Spain is rolling out something that they are calling a porn passport. Yes, they also have a pun in there with a. It's called a pajaporte, PAJAPORTE. And if you know a little Spanish, you know why that's hilarious.
Wait, I don't, though.
It's a portmanteau of a slang word for masturbation and then passport.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of like your whack port.
I was about to say, it's like I'm trying to think of a clever. No, I can't do it. I mean, it'll come out of the clear blue sky later, irrelevant, apropos of nothing in the episode. But
or maybe you'll wake up while you're asleep. And you'll just scream it out.
A jerk order. Like a work order? No.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's like jerk port or whack port.
No, absolutely. We're on the same page.
So they're going to have those in Max really soon.
Yep. And the idea is this. The initiative is part of something called a new digital wallet app. Let's go to Walter Fench, writing for the Olive Press over in Spain. The concept here is, get this, a little bit paradoxical. It's pitched as a way to preserve a user's anonymity when viewing pornography, sexual content online, while at the same time knowing enough about them to verify their age. So you have to use an electronic ID, a digital certificate, or something called the clave system to enjoy pornographic sites in Spain. Once your age is verified in this system, it issues a pack of what they call 30 tokens, valid for 30 days, and then you are off to the races, so to speak, until you use all your tokens, at which point you will be required to prove your age once again. Again, this is pitched as for privacy.
Seems kind of counter privacy to me. There's a lot of very personal questions they're expecting you to come right on out with, I don't know about that. It makes me uncomfortable just talking about it.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I watch way too much porn, and I really don't.
I know. Shout out to all our fellow conspiracy realists who are doing some, dare I say, cocktail math right now in their heads. We're like, oh, would I go over the tokens? That's on you.
Have you heard this? There's some Republican politician who has something where he like sends his son an inventory of the porn that he watches, or has thing like in an effort to curb his impure thoughts or to like cut down on his masturbation.
Well, because the idea is you have two users and you both get to see the other person's like
accountability buddy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Porn pals.
Yeah.
And there's also oh gosh. All right, we're going to skip some of that because we are a family show. Welcome to the family. Under this system in Spain, what are described by this journalist as heavy porn users who use up all their tokens too early are considered at greater risk of being tracked in their usage because they'll have to go back and verify their identity. Shout out to the old drug addict Dave Chappelle sketch. Someone's like scratching their neck and they got chapped lips and they're like, hey, government of Spain, you got any more of those porn tokens?
Tokens? Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Can you trade tokens with others?
No, I guess they're glad they ask.
Oh, okay.
But right now the answer is no. Here's what they say in terms of privacy. The application will be audited and certified by Spain's National Cryptologic Center to, quote, ensure that there is no record of users' pornography habits and can never be hacked.
Whatever.
Here's what you have to do to enter the app to use your token. You have to identify yourself each time with your fingerprint, facial recognition, or a code or a pattern. When you are typing the address of what is considered a pornographic site, a QR code will appear if the user is on their computer, and then a link will appear if they're using their mobile phone. Nothing weird. I've got to say, this is disturbing. It will also be used for online gambling.
Well, that makes a little more sense. I don't know. I know people do have crippling porn addictions that cause them real problems in their relationships and with their families and, all of that stuff. And I mean, the term gooning is very popular right now amongst the youth, which is basically a form of compulsive porn.
It's the only thing I'm mad at Robert Evans for ever teaching me.
Yeah, no, I get it, but it is very much a thing. So I guess I could see that, but it also just seems weirdly puritanical for such a, kind of laissez-faire, like let your freak flag fly part of the world like Spain.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking.
I mean, it's addressing valid problems, I guess, but it also, I would argue, it also goes to some of the dilemmas we described earlier. Is there a good faith effort to protect the innocent, or is it kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing idea wherein these good faiths are window dressing for a larger conspiracy to eliminate anonymity online?
It's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe in good faith when it comes to this kind of stuff. I just always am suspicious and feel like there's ulterior motives. I mean, what are you seeing right now with Facebook? Their whole facial recognition debacle, that they stopped doing several years ago, but are just now having to pay the piper for in terms of, in actual literal cash. They owe the government after an investigation into their, I believe, auto photo tagging that was, presented like, oh, wouldn't this be fun? We can identify people in your pictures for you and connect you to their accounts. But it really was just kind of like a shady way of just snatching up more data without people's consent.
And Madison Square Garden also uses facial recognition to identify adversarial lawyers. Yeah,
to make sure they're not at the boxing matches. Like what? I don't understand.
Well, they're a private entity, so they are beholden to a different set of regimes.
I just want to say, I feel like this was somebody's really interesting, maybe good idea to help people recognize that they're viewing this type of material too much. And it was somebody's really good idea who was really smart. And we're like, oh, what if we let people see, like really show it to them and make them feel at least that they could hold themselves accountable. Like, oh man, maybe I should cut down a little bit. I have to like fill out this whole process now. I gotta, I gotta take my GIMP suit off to push my finger against the thing every time. Well, I'm just saying.
No kink shaving, bro.
No, it's not kink shaving. I'm being silly.
It's a joke. I'm being silly. It's funny. But I posit the question, does it count if you're watching 10 porn videos at the same time on your VR headset? Is that only cost you 1 token, or is that 10 tokens?
So I can answer this question. You can only enter, I can sort of answer it. You can only enter the same website a maximum of 10 times without having to use up more tokens.
And that, I think I might have interrupted you. You just got my brain spinning, okay. But please finish your point if I did.
Well, I just mean, I think most of humans, once they find out what pornography is and that it exists and that it's easily accessible, it becomes at least a fascination for a time. That's what we've kind of seen. That's the way our society has altered. We've talked in the past how it has altered the way we think about other people in our world, right? Now that porn exists, it's altered us a bit at least. And it's something that we, for the most part, human beings crave, that kind of thing. So I do wonder if it has to be a self-regulated change that has to occur somehow. It's never going to be, hey guys, we have to stop making porn now. It's never going to happen, or we have to stop watching porn now.
What's interesting is it's a new problem, and a new problem requires new solutions. And people are trying to figure that out together. I am just pointing out there is a conspiratorial aspect here, potential for.
For sure.
The other conspiratorial aspect here, I would believe, is largely positive and beneficial to society, which is to better track and apprehend proliferators of CSAM, child sexual abuse material, or depictions of crime, people posting sexual assaults on the internet.
Now, if that is the case, I would, and it was actually helpful for that end, I might sign up for a program like this. You know what I mean? Like if it was an opt-in situation, which I would think what's the proposal that this would be mandatory?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm getting it right.
Because that's the only way that's the only way it would have any traction. Work. Yeah. It's like autonomous vehicles. It doesn't really work unless all the vehicles are autonomous. But there is good news. Before we move on, there's a lot we can't get to right now, but good news. There is a new dual target drug that can make antibiotic resistance 100 million times harder. So the ideas we did episodes back in the day about superbugs, right? The constant race between new antibiotics and quickly evolving infections and bacteria. So bacteria are very, very good at this. Their mutation evolution cycle is Olympic level. That's a nice setup for later. The concept here is that we being humans or civilization can use multi-pronged attacks to fight things that are super bugs in the making. So it's very important to hear as we get into more stories this evening that not all the news is bad. There is good news.
That's a great number for a talking point. I gotta say, it almost sounds made up. Like
100 million
times better.
Yeah.
That's like some Super Saiyan kind of like, Dragon Ball Z power up type stuff.
Mm-hmm. And another piece of good news, researchers have recently found that oxygen is being produced on the ocean floor. One complication, the research was paid for by a deep sea mining outfit, and they are not happy about the news.
Well, yeah, we need to put a bunch of stuff down there and extract a bunch of stuff and probably put a bunch of oil on the surfaces that are, I guess, somehow making oxygen.
Yeah, they were so astonished. This is a multi-year study. They were so astonished that Andrew Sweetman of the Scottish Association for Marine Science, the guy who led this study, he said for 8 years, he just disregarded all the data they were getting about oxygen production from ancient lumps of metal. This is a true Lovecraftian story. And he said, I just thought all our sensors were messed up. And then we spent another couple of years just trying to disprove it. And then we had to go back to the Metals Company, a Vancouver-based mining firm that funded this. In the Metals Company perspective, they spent years arguing that mining in the deep ocean has a low environmental impact and that they were a green company by extracting minerals from the sea floor. But if indeed this is producing oxygen, then the mining company's argument is somewhat fraudulent or incorrect. I shouldn't say fraudulent.
Well, I love the idea of a green mining company. Just in general. How do all those machines work down, in the depths of the ocean to extract minerals? That's weird.
Yeah, we're a one-stop fire department. We have vertical integration. So we start the fires and then we also put them out at a very reasonable market cost to you.
It's so weird. It's that same, what is the carbon offsetting and all that stuff that got so popular? It's there was a story about New Zealand air company, like passenger flight company, that an airline, excuse me, that's the word for it. Why not just say airline, Matt?
I like passenger flight company. It's good. Sounds fancy.
But there's an airline company that just, had to roll back on their climate goals and their carbon emission goals because they were realizing that the stuff they needed to buy, the better planes, the better fuel, it was so cost prohibitive, and just they were unable to meet the investor goals and meet those things at all. So they just said, well, we're just gonna push back what our goals actually are. We'll do it in 2050 now instead of 2030.
Well, and those things aren't like binding. They're more PR items than anything. So it's like, and they probably rolled them back quietly. You know what I mean? It's not like they put out a big old release saying, hey guys, FYI, we're definitely not going to meet these goals that we announced. It's all aspirational anyway.
Yeah. Aspirational is a more diplomatic phrase than greenwashing, but check out our episodes on that as well.
Right. Aspirational implies that they mean well. Greenwashing implies that it really is just kind of like flim flam, right?
Also, recycling's a scam.
Well, we talked about that. We got a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
Check it out. It's very much a scam. I mean, it does some good, but it was created as a way of deferring the guilt onto consumers, the
burden onto consumers. There are a lot of things happening in the world of tradecraft as well. Check out the news about Venezuela. That's getting pretty dicey. Shout out to everybody who's been having some offline conversations about that. U.S. federal authorities have arrested an ex-Green Beret in connection to a hilariously doomed 2020 attempted coup on Maduro. It's been called in certain circles the Bay of Piglets. And there are so many other things that we're not getting to yet. We're going to have to save them for later. We want to hear from you specifically about all of the stuff we just mentioned. It makes our day when you respond to a specific story, or in some of our cases, it makes our evening. The continent of Africa is maybe forming a new ocean at a very slow rate. That's crazy. Oceans are crazy in general. But you know what else was crazy to a lot of people in the United States, France, and abroad? A little game civilization likes to play every so often, something called the Olympics. We're going to pause for a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back with more strange news because, Noel, you got some thoughts here, right?
I sure do. And we've returned to the great game, the big games, the great games. What do they call the Olympics? People love the Olympics. It does present a certain opportunity for unification, globally speaking. I like that aspect of it. I'm not a sporto, to coin, I guess, a British or Australian maybe term that I'm a big fan of. I like the term sporto. Don't really care for sports that much, but I've always been a fan of the pomp and circumstance and pageantry behind a good Olympic opening ceremony. Though I realize in discussing this story with you guys and looking into it, that I've never really sat through an entire Olympic ceremony because I had no idea that they could be upwards of like 3 hours.
They're really good.
Yeah. This one in Paris this year for the 2024 Summer Games was no exception, clocking in at, I believe, a little more than 4 hours. And most of those 4 hours seemingly have not upset or offended anybody, but there's two particular moments that lasted literally moments apiece that have caused a real stir amongst certain, I guess, religious types, whatever. And we're not here to denigrate anybody's religion or crap on anybody's opinion, but I do think there's something to be said about manufactured outrage, and I do think that intent is very important. When you're getting mad at somebody for them supposedly, saying something that offends you, I do think it's important to put yourself in their shoes and think like, were they actively trying to offend? Was that the goal, or am I just maybe looking at this through a particular kind of lens? Ben, we talked a little bit about how in your previous life in academia, studying international affairs, you were required in many situations to watch the opening ceremonies because it was a way to kind of look into the culture of the country putting on the games in terms of like what kind of technology they wanted to show off, in terms of how they wanted to kind of sneak in, I guess, their ideology, their political beliefs, their culture into these proceedings. And I think that's a big part of what we're talking about with the Paris Games today. But could you speak a little bit about that before we get into the controversy, just how that might be a thing people don't really think about?
Sure. Yes. And thinking the Olympics, from stem to stern, is a diplomatic initiative. It's what we call a soft power initiative, which is why so many countries fight to have the Olympics staged in one of their cities, even though it is overwhelmingly a tremendous financial loss for the people who live in the country. It is a projection of power for a lot of people in the realm of, the policy wonks. And look, a lot of foreign governments are eyes on for the Olympic ceremonies, especially because in situations like the Chinese 2008 Olympic ceremony, we saw evidence of some really fascinating technology, always used for peaceful purposes with a nod and a wink. The same way we say, oh, we shot a satellite out of the sky to help space, right? To help humanity. Pay no attention to the fact that also we can shoot stuff out of space from the ground. So like the drones in the 2008 Olympics are a depiction of dual-use technology. The cloud seeding, right, which is a real thing, is another depiction of that.
That was in China, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, 2008. And what we see in the Paris Olympics, the thing that seems to have really riled up some culture war enthusiasts was the idea that there was a mockery of certain religions or religious scenes. However, the overall thesis of it, if you ask Paris and if you ask the IOC, International Olympic Committee, was the idea that the world is too fun for war. That's basically their thesis.
Right. Well, the scene that you're describing, Ben, is, I think, first and foremost, what it's been landed on as the subject of greatest offense. The idea.
And you did say there were two, though.
There are two, and I'll get to the second one later, which I think is the slightly more badass one, in my personal opinion. But I think this is the one that the community that is claiming offense has landed on as like the primary source of their concern. A depiction of what they describe as the Last Supper, which is, of course, a tableau of Jesus and his apostles the night before Jesus is to be crucified, and then all of the, particular hand gestures and things of that nature. And it's obviously an iconic image, so iconic, in fact, that it's been parodied, it's been recreated, it's been used for like band photos. I believe The Simpsons did it because they've done it all. because it's just so recognizable. So one could argue it's so iconic and recognizable that it's kind of beyond offense in many ways. But who am I to say? People can be offended by whatever they want. But the interesting thing is, so what they did in this moment in the the 2024 Olympic opening ceremonies was they depicted something very similar to this tableau: a group of trans and queer and drag queens and children as well, seated at a long table, kind of again in this very artistic kind of tableau, and then a giant serving platter with a dome and everything is lowered down, and a scantily clad, let's just say blue painted individual emerges from this dome and is kind of dressed in flowers and I believe like fruit and things like that, but not wearing much else. And the Olympic folks and then the people that designed this, which was an artistic collective of some kind, it was a few folks. It's a massive undertaking. The amount of moving parts in a 4-hour, incredibly highly choreographed, basically the most elaborate parade one could imagine. A lot of it actually takes place on water with different boats and floating devices. I believe there's even like a water horse kind of robot thing at some point. They describe this as an interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus. The individual portraying this Dionysus figure is a well-known in France singer named, I believe it's Philippe Catherine, and again, decked out in grapevines and floral kind of things and not much else. And a lot of folks that took to Twitter and various online platforms for outrage believe that this person was in some way representing Jesus, some sort of blasphemous bastardization of a Christ figure. But again, everyone involved in the production and the Olympic Games official Twitter account did clarify that this was in fact a depiction of the Greek god Dionysus. The Olympic Games official account did say the interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus makes us aware, to your point, Ben, of the absurdity of violence between human beings. And I've seen some other discussions about this, the idea that if you're nude, you can't conceal a weapon, and a lot of the early Greek Olympic Games, we know the Greeks were hedonistic folks. We know this. This is not like a secret. And the Olympic Games, are a part, an extension of that history. I believe, Ben and Matt, the Olympians in the earliest games competed fully nude. I think that's a thing.
Sure. And notice they were called Olympians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mount Olympus, the home of the gods.
The Greek gods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they are calling back to the history of the Olympics themselves. France has always been, a very vibrant community for transness and queer culture and creativity, and not to mention their history of iconoclastic kind of revolution. You've heard a little thing called the French Revolution. And to that point, they as a culture, I believe, view themselves as very a-religious in terms of their depictions of religious iconography. And I don't believe that there was any intention to have this be seen as religious at all, or any of these symbols to be interpreted as religious at all. And it may well be that because of that lack of kind of religious-centric kind of thinking, that they may have missed the boat a little bit in terms of what it might be interpreted as. But I would also argue that the point of an Olympic opening ceremony is to represent that culture, their ideals, and what they believe in and what they stand for. And the concept of liberté, the idea of kind of like, let your freak flag fly, do your own thing, march to the beat of your own drummer. That's all very French. This is all taking place in Paris, France. So I don't know. Some of the people that are outraged by this are folks like Candace Cameron, who I believe is what she went by when she was DJ on Full House, goes by, I believe, Candace Cameron Burr now, and is much more of a Christian kind of right-wing activist and, pundit type individual. She posted in an Instagram reel that she found it to be despicable, that she said she was sickened by it and that it was, offensive to all Christians. And Rob Schneider also took to the internet to talk some serious crap about this, and said that he found it to be totally offensive to Christians and that he refused to participate in any Olympics that would dare to defame people of the Christian faith that way. And I do want to point out, just to mirror what the guys that I love on internet today had to say. Dude did dress in drag a lot throughout his career, and he was in a movie called Little Nicky about the literal devil and the son of the devil.
So did Giuliani. I mean, he couldn't score a role in Little Nicky, but life is not measured in 100% wins. I have a proposition for you guys and all our fellow conspiracy realists. Do consider context. Let us also remember that the nation of France narrowly avoided descending into far-right fascism
recently,
only months ago.
Yes.
Not even months, very recently. And so it is quite possible, if not probable, it is quite possible that this is in some ways a reaction to that threat or a celebration of surviving that ideological fire. I would also posit this: the people propagating this as a attack on religion are trying to fill the slow news day of the culture war, because the U.S. election cycle encountered some Shyamalan plot twist here. People who need outrage for their machines to function had to find some new gas. And so this is perfect for that, especially if it is just a picture that seems very theatrical, a headline about a threat, something, we used to call it a nugget, right? A nugget at how stuff works. You don't have to read much. You don't have to know the context. You can just share it, right? You can just retweet that or whatever. And I think that's it. I think it's because the pre-planned outrage cycles were rendered moot due to some election shenanigans. And so now...
That's a good portmanteau, Ben.
Thank you, sir. Now this is slotted in where the earlier stuff was supposed to be. And I think it'll be ephemeral.
Oh, absolutely. It's highly ephemeral because it's sort of a non-issue. I am bummed, though, that the Olympic Committee, which has an ironclad grasp on all footage and logos and branding related to the Olympics, they'll issue a copyright claim against you, make your head spin, has fully removed footage of this from all accounts. A marvelous ceremony that seemed really artistic and fascinating, and I didn't catch it, so I've only seen little clips here. I just want to end with the other candidate for outrage that quickly took backseat to the Dionysus thing, a French metal band called Gojira, who are awesome. They performed on these parapets, on this incredible French castle that I believe used to be a prison that was even involved in the French Revolution itself. Paris is a conciergerie palace, and they did a French language rendition of an anthem, a 19th century French anthem, Ka Ira, I believe. And I'm not a native French speaker, so forgive mispronunciation there. But some of the other windows are all filled with images. Remind me of the Haunted Mansion in Disney, of this decapitated Marie Antoinettes all singing along operatically to this. It's an incredible feat of production. There's flames everywhere. It's really badass. There's even an opera singer that floats by on the mast of a ship as part of the water kind of parade that we were talking about. And I just want to leave the last word to some actual French people. One of the singer, I believe, Joe Duplantier of Gojira, had this to say of the notion that what they were doing was satanic. He goes, "It's none of that. It's French history. It's French charm, beheaded people, red wine and blood all over the place. It's romantic. It's normal. There's nothing satanic. France is a country that made a separation between the state and religion during the revolution. And it's something very important, very dear to the foundation of Republican France. We call it laïcité. It's when the state is not religious anymore, so therefore it's free in terms of expression and symbolism. It's all about history and facts. We don't look too close at symbolism in terms of religion. Bada boom. I think that's a great last word. You guys have anything to add? I yield my time. I think it's a fascinating story and a great example of what are they trying to bring back the satanic panic and to what end? To your point, Ben, I think it is just lazy attempt to fill the news cycle with outrage.
I would just point out, boys, I was a part of that weird ceremony in the year 2000, remember?
That's right.
The preparations for that were a year long minimum. So like this thing has been in the works for a long time.
But that fascist party has been bubbling for a long time as well. So the notion,
I'm with Ben there on that idea that this is, it's a way to through culture and art, make a statement, right? You're doing that and you've been planning it that long. And it really does feel to me, again, kind of as you said there, Ben, it's the kind of thing that gets a lot of attention and hopefully gets viewers watching the Olympics and not boycotting the Olympics. I don't know. I glimpsed up at a screen where I was when those were going on, and I saw that tableau, one of those shots, and I just went, huh. And then I didn't watch any more of it. And I wonder how many people had that happen before they got caught in this whole, as you guys said, the retweeting, sharing, reposting thing. That's like, look at this.
How dare they? Well, let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then come back with one more piece of strange news.
And we've returned. We're going to hit a couple of stories here. We had prepared something about climate and some potentially catastrophic stuff that is coming our way, but it's coming our way anyway. And if we want to talk about it, maybe we do a larger piece on this specific thing. You can look it up if you want to. It's called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, which is a current system that goes across the oceans and it basically moves warm and cold water around. It sends warm water to places that it needs to go. It's a huge interconnected system that's beneath the oceans, and it might be slowing down. It does seem to be slowing down. It does seem to be potentially the kind of thing that stops crops from being able to be grown on planet Earth in large areas.
That's not good.
It sucks, and I don't want to talk about that right now.
Cool. What else you got?
Okay.
What else you got?
I want to talk about something nicer. But if you do want to look up the story about that, you can find it in Wired. It was posted on July 25th, written by Sandra Upton. The title is, How Soon Might the Atlantic Ocean Break? Two sibling scientists found an answer and shook the world. Very good read, very long and depressing, but you should probably learn about it. Go for it. But for now, let's turn our eyes to the country of China and an awesome breakthrough that they just had that very well could affect all of us, because this could be a new technology or a new way to generate electricity and power that is green and would be a lot safer even than a coal-burning power plant, allegedly, according to the folks that have created the factory and are vetting it at this time. Let's go to theindependent.co.uk. They've got an article titled, China Unveils Meltdown-Proof Nuclear Power Plant in Clean Energy Breakthrough. Clean nuclear, you said? Meltdown-proof? That sounds great. We know nuclear energy is a great way to generate lots and lots of power pretty quickly. It's the safety thing. It's always been that issue, huh?
And the waste thing.
Oh, yeah. What do you do with it once it's done making all the electricity?
Bury it in the desert.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, if you're to believe what's being written about this, this could be a technology that would prevent something like what happened at Fukushima, where the rods of materials that are generally dipped down into water, which, produce all the bubbling water and the steam, those rods would go away. Those things that melt down, it would go away in this new system, because they have designed this weird, they call it a pebble bed reactor. Sounds a little bit weird. They are basically small amounts of the same, like uranium, whatever you're going to use, whatever nuclear material you're going to use for this, uranium, they're inside these pool ball sized graphite things that then all sit down And instead of in water, they, at least in water, because water is what, generates the steam to create the electricity. Water is also the cooling mechanism for these rods to keep them at a steady temperature. If they get too hot, that's when you have the meltdown. They then literally melt through the concrete and all the other the structure that is your power plant. These pebbles, apparently, because of the way they're formed, do not get as hot when they operate, and they are using helium to cool them rather than just water. Helium, it can get to a much higher temperature before there are major issues with it. This is potentially a huge breakthrough, guys. When I think about it being, potentially put across the world in places where you could now have this type of nuclear reactor rather than a coal-burning power plant. I really quickly wanted to talk with you guys about this. We've mentioned many times on this show, one of the problems with technology like nuclear technology and power generation is that countries that don't have the amount of money to put into research, to put into development, to then have engineers go through and, build giant nuclear power plants, they have to rely on other technology that's just a couple of steps behind, maybe a ton of steps behind, to generate the power they need, which would be
more polluting.
Exactly, way more polluting. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's going to be a larger impact the world over with this kind of thing?
The problem is, first of all, I'm blown away that there haven't been this kind of advancements in nuclear technology for as long as we've been using nuclear technology. Like, I'm sure there have been some subtle changes in infrastructure, I guess workflow, streamlinings and things like that. But largely, if I'm not mistaken, the technology that's used to generate power through a nuclear reactor has largely stayed the same. The big problem that I see here is Southern Company here in Georgia have been building an additional reactor at Plant Vogel near Augusta for like going on a decade now, if not more. And it keeps being slowed down by regulatory stuff. It keeps being slowed down by overages. And it's just like, to now say, oops, sorry, guys, we got to start over with this new Pebble stuff. I would be interested to see what the cost for retrofitting an existing plant would be, because it's the reactor, it's impossible. The reactor is made by Westinghouse, and you buy the reactor. So you're in it, baby. Once you got that reactor and you spent the money and installed it and developed it over the span of decades, years and years and years and years, you're invested and you're all in. And I don't know how you can walk that back.
The fancy term for that would be path dependency, right? That's what a lot of oil dependent countries have run into as well, as oil well. By path dependency here, we're seeing a multivariable pickle. Right. It's a real bag of badgers, because you could take something like KSA, Saudi Arabia. They're dependent largely on fossil fuels for domestic energy production, but they're also economically dependent upon exportation of fossil fuels, meaning that to a country with all of its petroleum eggs in one basket, something like nuclear technology could be seen as an enormous threat. To your point, Noel, you asked an excellent question. Maybe throw to you here, Matt. From my understanding, the current, first we have to know China's new project, or the new revelations about it, I should say, are best in class as far as we can tell from the claims. However, they are not the only thing out there using an alternative to water as a cooling mechanism. I think in Wyoming, there's a plant that they're refitting the old footprint of a fossil fuel plant, a coal plant, to use liquid sodium as a coolant. This is an exciting thing. I think you're right, Matt, when you point out that this is reporting coming through several filters. We can file this as big if true, but we also know it seems pretty legit at this point. The main problem production wise is that you run into path dependency. We can't make those old or current reactors. We can't make them into this. This is a new thing.
Yep.
Really quickly, they broke ground on there's 2 new units at Plant Vogel in Burke County, Georgia, in June of 2009. It was supposed to be done 2 units by 2017, but because of the delays and overruns, it reached the billions, $30 billion. Unit 3 only just started operation July 31st of last year, and Unit 4 isn't scheduled to start commercial operation till actually supposedly was April 29th of 2024. So that's, you can't turn back the clock on that. And there are other companies that make what are called small modular reactors and things that are a little less, all in kind of. But even those, you say small modular reactors, it's not like you can put it in your garage. But it's so cool, Matt. And I hate to poo-poo all of this. I hate that any of us. It's just like, how do you restart the clock, on these giant projects that are already so far along and like. Yeah,
I don't think you can, because ultimately that becomes profit motive for the companies building the reactors and the states and countries that are gonna, buy the power from the power generation. You can't. You just got to build new ones. If you then look a little deeper, it does seem like this is one play by China to wean itself off of coal, at least in the long term, right? And hopefully it's going to be another way forward. Even if we do have dangerous nuclear reactors, you just got to hope that the operators of those are really careful. Mm-hmm. And some natural disaster, like in the case with Fukushima, doesn't come through and, knock power out to all the systems that cool your stuff down.
Right.
Yikes.
It works great so long as it works, which is a quote from one of my old professors.
Totally.
Yes.
Not to mention that the cost of this kind of stuff will almost inevitably get passed on to rate hikes for the end users.
Oh, yeah. There's another story we didn't get to about a part of the U.S. is going to start charging customers for not using electricity.
Yes.
If they have their own off-the-grid alternative sources.
Louisiana, we'll get you with a power bill anyway.
Seems unconstitutional, man.
I know.
It's so messed up.
But that's the world we live in. I will say that this technological breakthrough is a net positive. Something being meltdown proof, quote unquote, does address one of the primary dangers of nuclear technology. Not the only primary danger, because there's still nuclear weaponry and they're kind of the same thing. So you got to keep an eye on that. But I would say, Matt, this is a breakthrough on the level of the boneless chicken wing.
It's not a chicken wing. It's a chicken nugget. I will die on this hill.
Well, let's talk about that. I want to know how you guys feel about boneless wings. I remember when I was a younger lad, when boneless wings became an option at some of my favorite places to get chicken wings, I was elated. When I don't got to deal with the bones anymore, heck yeah, this is amazing.
It's because kids like chicken nuggets, Matt.
So tell me, how do you guys feel about a boneless wing?
I've made my position clear.
In terms of what?
I don't know. What are your thoughts? Any terms, you give them to me. Any term you got.
An abiding interest in the international economics of the chicken trade would be the first and most unfun way to say it. But it is true, because there is there are so many things that happen to chickens in particular before these things get to the plate, right? Or get to your local chicken spot. Shout out to the local. The wings advertised as boneless, it strikes me, Matt and Noel and fellow conspiracy realists, it strikes me as one of those somewhat fatuous terms, like you know when you see all natural on a cereal box. There's not really a way, like it seems dumb and maybe a little legalistic, but you could say, hey, we're selling, to Noel's point, we're selling this processed leftover chicken that has been mushed up into the shape of something vaguely wing-like, and we can call it a chicken wing boneless. And that may be operationally different from a deboned chicken wing. However, chicken wing itself is already a little bit a little bit dicey in terms of how it's sold, because what there are flats and drums, and drumsticks are not wings, but they're sold as wings. So I think they're playing with the terms of definition here. Is that?
Yes, I think that's what we're dealing with. This is what the Ohio Supreme Court had to say in a 4-3.
Oh, good God.
Great.
Thank God.
Good. I feel like a weight has been lifted. Thank you. All right.
We got to know next to what Ja Rule thinks, but please give it to us.
Well, isn't Ja Rule the Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court?
He's the power behind the throne.
There's always room for improvement.
He works from home.
We're interrupting, Matt. Sorry.
That's
dude.
okay.
What is it?
Anyway, I just returned from Ohio. That's where I was when I wasn't on those episodes, guys. And I did take a little dip in Lake Erie. And I'm happy to report that I only saw 2 very dead perch hanging out, very large fish, all white and dead, right in the area where I was swimming with my son. And that was great.
Were they floating?
They were.
Or were they on the shore?
They were floating vertically,
belly
in the
up,
water.
as it were. No, not belly up. Okay.
One of them was belly up. One of them was belly down.
Whoa.
One of them looked alive.
Make a wish.
As the waves moved it closer and closer to shore.
Sure.
Not fun. Anyway, the Ohio Supreme Court said in a 4-3 ruling that, quote, boneless wings refers to a cooking style. And anyone who is eating a boneless wing should be on guard against bones, since it's common knowledge that chickens indeed have bones.
Do have bones. They haven't yet invented the boneless chicken. I know they've been trying, Remember those conspiracy theories about there being like a boneless chicken, or like this chicken that's bred for its nuggets?
That's like a centipede-esque thing.
Yeah.
The future is ours. Also, I want to, if okay with you guys, I want to give a shout out to a show that our old Discovery alum, Trace Dominguez, does called That's Absurd. Please elaborate. They have an episode coming out about what a human life would be like if humans had no bones. And maybe this is a similar thing, though, because the Ohio Supreme... Okay, first, I have so many questions. And I know we've got to... I want to be respectful of your time here, Matt, but also... how did this get to the Supreme Court of Ohio?
Well, it went through the lesser courts. This thing that happened with this guy named Michael Berkheimer, who was hanging out in Hamilton, Ohio. He got boneless wings with Parmesan garlic sauce.
This is the way.
Yeah. And he got a little choked up on a piece of one of his boneless wings, got it out of his throat, I guess. And then 3 days later, came down with a fever. And he was feeling really sick. He was trying to understand what's going on. He couldn't keep any food down. So he went to the ER, and a doctor found a long, thin bone that tore his esophagus and caused an infection.
Have fun in your nightmares tonight, Noel.
You guys remember?
Yes.
When I ate a fish and I got a bone stuck. It was like we were on tour doing live shows, and it was there. I felt it for days.
I think it got
really
in
thought
your
I was
head,
going to die.
too.
Oh, it got into my head bad. I have a very sensitive gag reflex. I think it scratched my esophagus a little bit, and I was just feeling the scratch. But y'all, that is no joke. Do not mess with bones if you think you've swallowed one, because it really could just stick around there, and then an infection would be inevitable. Yeah.
So what happens to our guy in Ohio?
Well, Berkheimer, 3 days after the doctor stuff, he's like, what the heck happened? Oh, it must have been that time I choked, and that was a boneless wing. How did
I was told they was boneless.
What the hell? So he sues the restaurant. Wings on Brookwood. You're sued, he said.
Oh, geez.
And he said they failed to warn him that the boneless wings, which are, nuggets of boneless, skinless breast meat, contain bones. And he named the supplier as well, the person who actually sold that restaurant the boneless wings. I'm doing quotes
the
there.
Purdue or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Said they were negligent. You're all negligent. You're going to pay me. And it went through the lower courts. It got dismissed, got to the Supreme Court, and it basically got dismissed again.
Now, within these proceedings, did it come to light as to how these is there a different process for boneless wings than there is for chicken nuggets? And I hate that I'm harping on that, but the implication there would be, to Ben's point, that it is in some way deboned as opposed to some slurry that is then formed into a shape and deep fried.
It depends. because different suppliers and different products. There's a whole bunch of different things, right? We learned about the pink slime chicken stuff that becomes generally nuggets that we've seen, right?
Sure. Check out our earlier episodes.
Yeah, you bite into one of those, and it's definitely not the same tissue that you would find if you cooked a whole chicken or something.
I like the little tumory things, right? You guys know when you get a good, it's like a juicy evil booger.
Oh God!
Inside the slurry.
God,
ruining chicken nugs for the lot of us.
Please message me if you want some notes on your nightmares, folks.
Okay, but
as you're saying,
some other chicken products are actually breast meat or the tenderloin or whatever.
It'll usually say that rib
meat.
meat or something. Like it'll say that on the packet, or if you're buying it frozen, for example,
mechanically separated boneless wings.
Yes, right? which could be this kind of stuff. Like a lot of places use it's not rib meat of a chicken. It's the and it's not wing meat either. It's the thigh meat generally that gets used. That piece of thigh meat is then kind of just turned into a shape with some of the same chemicals and substances they use to smash that meat together, which is kind of like that listeria thing with boar's head when you get that packaged meat like ham that's in this really nice shape every time somehow.
Yeah, that's the story you did get to. I love that you're shouting that out. I had that in the notes as Bay of Piglets 1. Boar's Head has recalled 7 million more pounds of deli meat due to a huge listeria outbreak.
That came up while we were on vacation, and I had Boar's Head ham sitting in my house, and I also had some on the way to feed my kid up there in Ohio. Yikes.
But this, okay, so how does this all work out? Like you said, Matt, the Ohio Supreme Court, their version of Diana Ross and the Supremes found that chicken wings can have bones, even if advertised as boneless, because they're already not technically chicken wings, and boneless is a cooking method, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's not standardized, though. You literally asked that question, and you said it depends. So it's almost more like it's not describing a process that is regulated. It's just an advertising mechanism, and it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yeah, it's a silly thing. If you're buying meat that came from an animal that probably had
boneless
bones,
wings it's a gimmick.
And
it's a total.
It just depends on how much you trust the factory that is producing that product and how much you trust the company, I guess, that owns that factory and all that other stuff. We're going to talk about another factory thing in our listener mail this week. So this is a whole other thing we can get into.
I'm excited about that one. I've been pretty deep in that one.
Oh yeah, dude. I am just learning about it, but it's fascinating. I'm going to read this one quote from Justice Joseph T. Dieters, who wrote for the majority here. He says, see if you guys can decode this a little better than I can. He says, a diner reading boneless wings on a menu would no more believe that the restaurant was warranting the absence of bones in the items than believe that the items were made from chicken wings. Just as a person eating chicken fingers would know that he had not been served fingers.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
It's referring to a shape or like a style of presentation more than anything. And I just Googled boneless wings and your story came up more than anything. But I believe there was some contest or something and Popeye's boneless wings won big. And a lot of people were up in arms about that. But I came up with this article from AP from 2023 around the Super Bowl time, how the boneless wing became a tasty culinary lie. So that's just a headline that I think fits the bill for this entire discussion.
To the point of, again, I know I know I'm freestyling here, but to the point of your question, Matt, unpacking the legal opinion, there is a bit of a semantic stretch there by saying, hey, chicken fingers aren't really the phalanges of chickens, right?
Chickens don't even have fingers.
You're right.
Well, talons.
They got the little, they got, they're not the talons. Chicken feet are an entirely different product, sure. But
some people really enjoy to eat chicken feet.
Once you get past the gelatinous bones, or cartilaginous bones, I should say. But the stretch there, I guess the part that makes it an opinion, is the idea that because people know chicken fingers are not chicken fingers, they should therefore be assumed to know that chicken wings are not always chicken wings, which is a little bit, it's a little bit of linguistic Aikido there.
But the word boneless is in there, and that's how it's advertised, which is the thing that I think that's the reason why the dissenting judges called that reasoning, quote, utter jabberwocky.
Spurious. Yes, I've never seen that one used.
It's good. You could do it. Yeah, you can use jabberwocky.
Very good. Poppycock indeed. Jabberwocky. That's fabulous. No, it's a style. It's a stylistic choice. It's like a menu item kind of bit of trickery. I'm trying to think of can you guys think of other examples of that? Like shoestring fries aren't made of shoestrings,
Boneless ribs, lady fingers.
The McRib.
Lady fingers are not lady fingers.
Well, for me, it's like buying a lot of, let's say, fish, like fish fillets that have been prepared to buy at a grocery store. Every one of those fish has bones in it, right? It's been deboned by somebody somewhere.
You might catch one though, bro. I'm telling you from experience.
You might, and if this is in fact a meat product that had a bone in that piece of chicken that was used to create the wing, the boneless wing, then that's one thing. If it's a whole other, system of producing whatever that piece of meat is, it's another thing. The
FDA is compromised. There is a difference between deboned and boneless as it's being sold. Again, I don't want to lose that joke, but if you have never tried lady fingers, let me just manage some expectations. It is a dessert. It does not contain human flesh.
And speaking of which, just last thing for me, the purported inventor of tiramisu, the delightful Italian dessert, which is made of lady fingers soaked in espresso, mascarpone cheese, and cocoa powder, and I believe one other thing, passed away. I didn't even realize it was like a relatively modern invention, tiramisu, one of my favorite desserts of all time.
The future is now.
The future is no, sorry.
It's boneless. It's boneless is what the future is.
Boneless.
Ed, this is where we pass it to you, folks. We cannot wait to hear your thoughts. Of course, we love food and food history and food conspiracy. Please look up that story about the slowly forming ocean. Let us know your thoughts on the Olympic ceremony, culture wars, and of course, Spain's pornography passport. If you got wrapped up in that Interpol bust, we'd love to hear that story too. We'll be back later this week with more strange things, and we'll be back next week with more strange news. In the meantime, join the conversation. We can't wait to hear from you.
And welcome back, Matt, from Skibbity, Ohio. It's just lovely to have you back. You can indeed find us on the internet at the Handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook, where we have our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy. On YouTube, where we have video content coming at you on the regular, and on X, FKA Twitter. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
Do you like to call people? Call us. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. You got to turn those letters into numbers. You'll figure it out. When you do call in, you've got 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool nickname and let us know at some point if we can use your name and message inside that voicemail. If you got more to say than can fit in that 3 minutes, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. I don't often do this, but spoiler for an upcoming conversation in Listener Mail, our weekly Listener Mail program. What would be your dream last meal? Tell us all about it. Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.